Hello everyone, this is Jimmy and welcome to episode 20 of All the Mods 3 Expert Mode. You'll notice, we're not in Kansas anymore. We're actually quite a ways from our base. What I did was I, just out of curiosity, went to the highest point on our base and glided a long ways away to try to level up our Astral Sorcery points. And we'll see we are now at level 17. I've put all my points in. My plan, at least for now, is to grab this trait even though we can't use it yet, and then I'm just going to pick up as many of these increased perk experience ones as I can just to get to level, I think the max is 30, get to level 30 faster, at which point I'll respec and then actually put the points where I want them to go. But one thing I discovered while I was out was a buried treasure map, and I think lag, and I think we're right on the edge of the map right now. Ooh, more lag. Terrain generation is rough. Anyways, I'm expecting that there we are. So the treasure is right around here, eh? Let's see if we can dig it up. Let's see. It's a little tough to tell where I am on this map because, I mean, everything's white. But, oh, that's a skeleton. Told there's buried treasure somewhere around here. Ah, there it is. Alright, what's in the chest? Where is the chest? That was a disappointing buried treasure, eh? Whoopsies. Found a second one too, so let's go check that out. Let's see, this is one I just looted. We'll check out the other map, and then we can head back to our base. Alright, where is the treasure here? Right under us. Here somewhere. There you are. Yeah, I mean, I'll take a summoning pendulum. Besides that, that's also a pretty disappointing chest. Alright, whatever. Let's head back. Real quick, I want to show you something I discovered along the way. I'm not going to bother doing it now because there's things I want to do more, but I'm pretty sure this is the entrance to a Doom-like dungeon. So at some point when I have a little bit of free time, we can go in here and see what's up. Aha! Alright, cool. So anyways, normally when I go back to my base, I teleport back, but since I want the travel the world experience, I'm just going to fly back. You see, level 18. And we're back. So, looks like our crystal clusters have all grown. I think that one's 4. I'm going to take a look around, make sure there's no stragglers. Oh, that one's only 3. Alright, I guess I'll harvest. I'll take a look around and harvest all the 4s. But all you need to do is harvest them with a pickaxe. I believe it helps to have fortune on it, so there we go. When you get it, you always get 1 celestial crystal. I think there's a chance for a second one, and you always get a stardust, and there's a chance for a second one. So these cost 1 stardust to make, but you always get it back, and you have a chance to make a profit. That one's not done yet either. Is this chunk loaded? Jeez. Yes it is. Okay, oh well, it's only been a couple hours since the last episode, so that's probably why some of these aren't done. But whatever, I'm going to harvest these all up, and then we'll stash them away. Alright, so it looks like all but 2 of them were fully grown. So I harvested those, and here we are. Now when I look at these, ooh, 100% purity, that's very lucky. We can change the stats on these crystals. What I'm looking for are ones with very high purity, because that is the hardest stat to fix, I guess. So wow, I got some really good purity rolls. Anyways, the way these stats work, you see there's size, purity, and cutting. Each time you take one of these crystals and throw them in a puddle of liquid starlight. So if I do that and then that, actually, does I don't know if that's like, does that magnet not pick it up? No, it does. Annoying as ever. I can make the magnet disabler. You know, let's take this 99% for demonstration purposes. But when you throw it in a puddle of liquid starlight, you'll notice it starts putting off these blue particles. In fact, let's sleep through the rain again. It's always raining on my server, I swear. Alright, rain's gone. So you see, when you throw it in a puddle of liquid starlight, what'll happen is over the course of about 5 minutes, maybe, at least a couple minutes, the crystal will absorb the starlight, and it's size value will go up. In fact, I didn't look at the size value before I threw that in, but the size value will go up to a maximum of 900. Now, if you throw a size 900 crystal into a puddle of liquid starlight, it'll have a chance to fracture. What that'll do is it'll result in splitting into 2 crystals. Both will be much smaller, so like you'll get like a 100 and a 300, for instance, and at least one of them will have a higher purity. So that's how you, well, much less than a minute, but that's how you level up the purity of your crystals. So this is 392 now. Let's wait until the next cycle and see what its size ends up as. It's once again soaked in the starlight, and now it is 447. So yeah, we're just going to repeat this process until we get them to split and get a bunch of purity 100 crystals. When you're trying to farm astral sorcery crystals, that is your first goal. And actually, now that I think about it, doing it manually is way too tedious. While it is possible, ooh, this one's done. Well, it's possible to, just manually put down the bucket and, fill it, yada, yada, yada. You're going to go somewhat insane doing it that way. That crystal sucks. So I'm going to set up at least, batch operation system to make this easier for us. I want to rip up all this cobblestone. Oh, I guess I can rip up all the cobble. There's no fluid here anymore, right? And my plan is to use not auto placers. I think this can be made into a fluid placer. Yeah, use fluid placers to place the buckets, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do with the actual crystals themselves. All right, here we have it. Just a bunch of fluid placers. The fluid is being supplied by our, Starlight farm here. In fact, I should keep it nighttime so that the Starlight farm runs at higher efficiency. I decided to go with fluid ducts here instead of these transfer pipes because fluid ducts are just much faster. And these things do consume a fair bit of liquid starlight. And then there's hidden fluid ducts under these covers. I use covers for the first time. I guess I can't even see through them. But anyway, the point of the covers is so I have a smooth surface to walk on. Without the covers, I actually dip down just enough that walking across the fluid decks causes me to pick up the ore or the crystal, which I obviously don't want to do. Anyways, what's happening here is that these are just soaking in the starlight. When one of them absorbs the starlight, you saw that it actually happened very quickly there. A new bucket of starlight gets placed on the crystal, so this will cause the crystals to keep growing up to max size until they split. When they split, there'll be 2 crystals left in one of these puddles and nothing will happen. At that point, I need to intervene. Also, if you step in liquid starlight, you get night vision for a while. It's also very easy to fall into it, apparently. Anyways, this is only 1/2 of the crystal growing process. So basically, this is used to grow crystals, or to yield more crystals, both to level up their purity towards 100%, and after the purity is at 100%, it just lets you take 1 crystal, split it into 2. And since there's 10 pods, I can take 10 crystals and split them into 20 per, cycle. The other half then is we have to take the crystals and grow them into perfect stats. That is 900, what are the 3 stats again? 900 size, 100 purity, and 100 cutting. So I've already talked about how to deal with size and purity. To improve cutting, we need to use I think it's called like the grind wheel or something. Grindstone. Very simple recipe. And the grindstone lets you trade size for cutting. So it makes the size smaller, but the cutting higher. I'll make one and demonstrate. For demonstration purposes, I'm just going to use a rock crystal. The only difference between rock crystals and celestial crystals, I think, is their maximum size. Rock crystals cap out at 400 or 500, whereas celestial crystals go all the way up to 900. So you just right-click it on there. Well, let's take a look at its initial stats. 257 size, 32 cutting. I think I did cut it once. But you put it on, cut it once, check it again. 239 size, 35 cutting. And in fact, on average, each click increases cutting by 4 to 5%. So you can do it multiple times in a row. Whoopsies. But if you cut too many times and you bring the size below a threshold, which is somewhere around 0, you see that the crystal goes away. So you don't want to do that. In fact, I didn't think I got that crystal to 0. Anyway, this crystal's at 316.12. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll cut it 4 times. 192.30. I'm curious, how far can I take it before I break it? Maybe it's just a rock crystal thing. I've definitely taken celestial crystals into the like low teens and they haven't broken. Okay, 100 plus. Yeah, that definitely broke very early. Anyways, I'm pretty sure that's rock crystal unique behavior, so I'm not going to worry about it. You very rarely actually cut rock crystals because you don't really care for rock crystal stats. You only use them in crafting where their stats don't matter. The grind wheel has a few other uses. You can use to process ores, although the fact that you have to manually right-click it makes it kind of a pain. Maybe you can use like a mechanical user for something like that. I can't actually say I've done it myself. But yeah, I can use to process ores with a chance to ore double. Besides that, I mean, I guess that's all it really is for. You can turn star metal ingots into star metal dust. I guess it's not really all that useful a thing. Alright, here we can see what happens after the crystals split. So you see here how there are 2 crystals in each of these puddles. Nothing will happen if there are 2 crystals in a single puddle. So when remember, this happens when the crystal has like split. So you see now we have a 100 purity crystal and 2 total. So what we can do then is take the 100, put it back. I'll even run the 99 again. And we have the same thing here. But we've taken 1 crystal and made 2. And again, at least one of the 2 is of a higher purity. So I'm going to keep doing this until I have all 10 slots are being filled with 100 purity crystals. This process will actually take a fair bit of time, just because each cycle takes at least a handful of minutes, and this entire process will probably take upwards of 30 minutes. But I'm just going to probably do it in the background while I work on something else. And that something else can be setting up our Starlight Infuser. So this structure, like all structures in Astral Sorcery, take up a fair bit of space. So I expanded our platform a little bit. I mean, it's not particularly difficult considering it is made entirely of cobblestone. But let's build this up and put it to use. Structure's built, and you'll notice part of the structure here is liquid. So when you use the Starlight Infuser, let's in fact do so right now. Put an item on it, hit it with the wand to turn it on. Takes a couple seconds, and it just becomes a different item. So our primary use for it, at least as far as the crafting mechanic goes, will be to turn aquamarine into resonating gems. However, there's a couple other uses for it. You can turn glass panes into glass lenses more easily. So normally you have to craft it, but well, with less resources, I guess. Maybe more easily is not the right term. You can, I don't know, pearls to Eyes of Ender, redstone to gunpowder, break up blaze rods. There's some interesting uses in here. You can ore triple. You can infuse your crystal tools, which is a pretty cool thing actually. I might make some crystal tools later. But yeah, the downside is every now and then when you use it, some of this liquid starlight may get used up. So I don't think I needed that time. But I'm going to make a couple of these resonating gems, and eventually one of the buckets of liquid starlight will get used up. When that happens, you have to replace the liquid starlight before you can use it again. In fact, you see here, this no longer has liquid starlight in it. So if I try to start a new craft, it's like, nope, won't do it. You got to put liquid starlight back in. So there's a couple ways you can solve this problem. First, you can just have a fluid placer on top of each of these blocks pointed downwards. That'll, as soon as if it gets used up, it'll place a new bucket there. That's like a good solution. It works. However, in Astral Sorcery, there is a block called, if I can find it, this one, the Containment Chalice. So it's a bit of an involved recipe to make. You have to make it on the iridescent altar. However, the Containment Chalice will I'm pretty sure it's a Containment Chalice. What you can do is the Containment Chalice, when it's filled with liquid starlight, it can provide the starlight for the infuser, for the Starlight Infuser, which means that the infuser will, one, never drain the full buckets out of the corners, and two, it'll run a lot faster. I guess, and as a third thing, it'll use less starlight per operation on average. So I'm just going to do that and manually fill in the buckets until we get there. Cool. So now that we can make resonating gems, I'm going to need a few more than this. I think we're ready to make the iridescent altar, right? Yeah, we have celestial crystals and resonating gems. Cool. So let's make that. Here's one of those situations where the stats on your celestial crystal when you use to craft doesn't matter. So I just grabbed one of my bad ones. Anyways, this takes a good minute, so we'll leave that be. I'll check up on these. Some of these, once again, have split. So anything that, at this point, I think anything that has 100 stat will go back in. Anything that's less than 100, I'll set aside, because I think we have enough 100 statted celestial crystals. And our altar is done. When this happens, you see you learn more about something. The bar goes red because the structure is wrong, and we just have to add components to it. This is one of the easier tiers to upgrade because I think all it does is add some bricks. You'll know you built your structure right when that little crystal shows up in the air. It's purely decorative, you can't actually use it, but it's just your sign that, hey, everything's working. So now, if we make it nighttime again, we should see that we're not even close to filling up the starlight bar. Yeah, we're even in the dead of night, we might get it to like half, maybe a little bit over half, but we're going to have to do a little bit more work to get it all the way full. And there are some crafts that will require 100% full starlight bar on the iridescent altar. So just something to keep in mind. For the time being though, I think we'll leave it alone until we hit one of those recipes. Now looking at the recipes for like the recipes in JEI for the iridescent altar, you'll notice there's like stuff all over the place. Let's take that this as the first recipe we make. Obviously there's the items that go into it, but you see there are 5 items around the edges. There can be a different number, but the items around the edge don't go into the crafting table. They go on these, what are these called? Relays. So let's grab, I think no recipe uses more than 5 or 6, but I'll set up 6, I guess. Spectral relays. All right, let's put our recipe in. So gold, sooty marble, star metal. All right. Input the recipe. You see, actually, it. You know how earlier I was like, we might need more starlight? Yeah, we need more starlight. Okay, well, I was going to start this recipe, but I guess we can't yet. Then, in order to craft this, we have to collect more starlight and shine it into our altar. Before we do that, I want a crystal with perfect stats. So, how do I want to go about doing that? Let me set up the other half of our crystal growing setup thing here. The other half here looks basically the same as the first one, except there's a drawer here. What goes in the drawer? Well, it'll be the finished products. So what I want to do, I still have to, put one item in the drawer to lock it, and I have to make the first crystal before I can do that. All right, so let's take one of these celestial crystals we have that has 100 purity, put it on the grindstone, and go ahead and grind it until 100 cutting. So, let's see, it's at 42 now, so that should be about 15 clicks. 100, there we go. So I want to throw this in here, but when it reaches 900 size, I want to pull it out before it splits. So this is going to require a little bit of manual babysitting. I'm going to start on this one too. So it needs, so it's like 12 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Yeah, if you assume each click does about 4%, that'll be pretty accurate. On average, I think it does slightly better than that. But anyways, I'm going to babysit these a little bit until at least one of them reaches 900 cutting, or 900 size. All right, this crystal has now grown to perfect stats. All 3 are orange. So I'm going to set it in there. It'll act kind of as a filter. Now in the future, if a crystal like this gets dropped, it should get picked up by the item magnet thingy. Let me try something. Okay, the only reason the item's not getting picked up here is because it's out of range. I have the range set to Z2, so it only covers, plus 2 blocks in each direction. So that gets picked up. Even if it's sitting in the water, it should get picked up. Well, if it even makes it to the water, it gets picked up. See, it's in there. Sometimes I've experienced a bug where if you only have one locked drawer, items don't go into it correctly. But I think it's been fixed. By the looks of things, it's been fixed. We can test with this crystal. When this crystal reaches perfect stats, I expect it to get picked up by the item collector. This way, they don't stay in the fluid, and they shouldn't split anymore. So what we do is we use the crystals on this half to split to farm additional crystals. Like let's see which one's split. This one looks like it has. I don't see, yeah, no, I see 2 in there, right? And then when that happens, I take these, I put the smaller of the 2 back in there to keep growing. I take the larger of the 2, I come here, grind it up. What's its stats? Oh, that's my hot water tank again. 1 second. All right, so I take this and then I grind it. 100, perfect. And then I throw it into the liquid. And with any luck, when it's done growing, it'll also get sucked into there. So it's not a fully automated process, but it's, much easier than having to manually pour buckets of liquid starlight over the things and checking their stats over and over, yada, yada, yada. Now, I've noticed a couple things. First of all, it is really laggy up here. I don't know if it's like all the particles or whatever from Massive Sorcery, or the change field of view has made things worse. But yeah, it's really laggy. Second of all, the change field of view is, I think, getting a little annoying. At first, when I only had a couple points in these perks, most of so many of these perks give a little bit of movement speed, but it adds up. So anyways, I think what I'll do is I'm going to restart my pack and install Optifine, both to see if it improves the FPS and to get rid of the dynamic field of view. And we're back now with Optifine. So I've already turned dynamic FOV off. We no longer have the mega FOV, and FPS looks good for now. I'm hoping it stays that way. Anyways, while I was gone, our crystal count has gone up to 3. That means that the ones that were in here growing did indeed get picked up. That's good. So I just have to, again, periodically come over here and look for anything that has 2 items in it. Maybe I can set up a system that'll automatically pick up the items when there's 2. I can use like the I think it's called the scanner from RF Tools. One of the RF Tools blocks, anyways, can detect how many item entities there are, right? In like a space. I don't know. I'll think about it. But this is really something you don't have to do particularly often. Like maybe 30 celestial crystals will last you your entire playthrough. So it's one of those things where, like, yeah, you could fully automate it, but the time you spend setting up full automation, like you'll spend less time just doing it yourself, which kind of defeats the purpose of automation, huh? Celestial crystals can indeed be ground down much smaller than their rock crystal counterparts without breaking. This one, I got it all the way, ooh dear. I got it all the way down to 60 and it didn't break. Whereas I was breaking rock crystals at like 80. So you don't really have to worry about breaking celestial crystals by grinding them too small. Like, yeah, there's a point when that'll happen, but it's, it's somewhere in like sub 30, I think, is when you have a chance to break them. In any event, I'm going to sharpen all these rock crystals up and then start growing them to max size. Ooh, I got this one all the way down to 23 size. Now that we have some of these max size crystals, I want to attune them to one of the constellations. I have Visio set up, so Visio will do for now. For this particular task, I don't think it actually matters what I attune them to, but I need a night when Visio's in the sky. I'm going to advance a few days, and hopefully sooner or later we have a Visio day. Just waiting to see, does that turn on? Nope. Here's a Visio day. So all we have to do is throw the crystal there, and it attunes much like we do. It takes it a fair bit of time again, so be patient for it. If you go pick it up early, it cancels the process. When you're done, you have attuned celestial crystals, and when you looked at your stats, it says the constellation that it's attuned to. Now we can take one of these and turn it into, let's see, what I'm looking for is the collector crystal, I believe. See if I can find its recipe in here somewhere. So the collector crystal has a recipe in the book, but the item is invisible. So I don't know if the recipe's been disabled in the scripts or... Oh no, here they are. They're just invisible. Maybe this is a side effect of installing Optifine. Weird things happen when you install Optifine. But I guess they do exist. Yeah. So you take an attuned crystal, you just craft it, and it becomes a celestial collector crystal. That's a big one. So this should work, but it's not showing an item. Maybe because the item's invisible. I'm just going to try to craft and see what it does. There we go, it does work. Now, in addition to the attuned collector crystal, you need to make a structure. This little thing around it. This will cause it to be able to function at full power even during the day. Wow, the item actually is invisible. You can place it on the ground and see it, and these you can pick up with a pickaxe. Unlike the ones... I hope you can. Where'd it go? Didn't break it, did it? Oh, it's still chilling on the ground. Alright, there we go. But to say, I was pretty sure you can pick these up with a pickaxe. Alright, so I'm going to make that structure and place the crystal on it. We can then link the crystal to the altar, and the crystal will provide the starlight power for this altar that will allow us to max it out. As with most things in Astral Sorcery, you know it works when you have particles. So, right now it's unlinked, we have this much star power. All we have to do is link the celestial cluster crystal to the altar, a little light beam will shine, and voila, we have full power. And in fact, one pretty cool thing about this is, even if I sleep, I'm pretty sure we'll have at least almost full power during the day. A max-statted celestial collector crystal is extremely powerful. Look at that, full starlight power. Bright stars, or bright sun is out. I mean, I guess we can still see some stars, but what this means is now we are no longer, I mean, for certain things like attunement, we still need nighttime to do, but for crafting, we can now do during the day. Neat. Anyways, let's make this now. So as you can see, it's during the day, but we can craft it. Let's get it started by hitting it with the wand. What you'll see after you start, though, is that for items that require these additional items on the outsides, we will see ghost items appear on these pedestals or relays, and it'll wait for you to place the item on the relay, and these will also be consumed as part of the crafting process. Now, normally you don't know which item is going to go on, it's going to request which item to go on which relay, but because this uses 5 of the same item, it actually doesn't matter. And I'll just put 6 items down, I'll cover all of them. And pretty soon, when it's done humming, it should give us our Containment Chalice. There it is, Containment Chalice, and our leftover gem. Alright, so this can go anywhere near the Starlight Infuser. I'll put it here, and I'll fill it up with some Starlight. Sure, that'll do. Now, oopsies, that doesn't go in there. Now when I put a aquamarine in, come on, click aquamarine, start the infusion, you'll notice there's it draws fluid in from the Containment Chalice, and it's much faster. Well, at least it's a little bit faster, but the big thing is it will never use up starlight from down there, so now it's much easier to automate. I set this up with 2 mechanical users, one providing the item that actually gets infused. This is on activate block with item mode. The other one just has a resonating wand in it that begins the process. Actually, I gave it my wand, so I need to craft a second one because I need my wand to craft. But very simple system that is, that will automatically craft the resonating gems, and then all I have to do is add a item vacuum type thing to automatically pick up the final product. And just like that, it's done. So we can now quite easily use our Starlight Infuser to even do things like ore processing if we like. I grab some of my iron ore, right? If I, do it this way, I get 3 iron ingots per ore. It's not completely free because it does use up a non-trivial amount of starlight. What I could do is I could run some type of item or fluid conduit or even just an ender tank to automatically keep this containment chalice stocked. But I think I'm just going to not bother processing ores this way, except for if there's any, particularly valuable ore. Because with a quarry generating iron ore, I don't really care about the difference between, getting 2 or 3 iron per. But yeah, it's just a thing we can do now. Another thing I should have done earlier is look at the recipe for the Mantle of the Stars. I was going to be like, oh yeah, I'll just make the Mantle of the Stars and get Creative Flight. I don't think I'm doing that anymore. Yeah. Whoops. All right then. I guess we're going to have to put our points elsewhere because that recipe is clearly not happening in the foreseeable future. So if we're not going to end up going for Creative Flight here, I'm going to take a look around to see maybe there's some other points that are interesting enough. Now that I've discovered that my first goal is unobtainable, why don't we set a new goal of trying to discover what these 4 locked perks do, just so I know if they're interesting. These are the perks associated with the faint constellations, which are too faint to be viewed through the telescope. The telescope can spot like your primary, well, it's a secondary, and your secondary constellations, right? These are the ones you see here. But if I wonder, can I discover them yet? I can. If I get 4 more constellation papers, you see these 4 are faint constellations, which are too faint to be seen with the telescope, which means I need to make an observatory. Alright, the observatory, however, you see this figure in the background. It requires that when I craft with the iridescent altar, that I attune it to whatever that star-shaped constellation is. Lucernia. So let's swap our attunement altar over to Lucernia and go ahead and attune a crystal to it. For crafting reasons, it actually doesn't have to be a good crystal, but I mean, I have 6 now and a bunch more that I just have to, sharpen and craft. So I use the good crystals just because may as well. One of the intermediates in the observatory, this infused glass, is actually a pretty cool thing. This can be used in the... Does it show? No, but it's used in Astral Sorcery's enchanting mechanic, and you can create some pretty broken enchantments with it. So I'm making a lot of them. You can get like fortune up to maybe 5 or 6, maybe even 7. And I mean, I don't need to tell you why Fortune 7's good, right? It works as you would expect Fortune 7 to work. So like instead of getting, 3 diamonds per diamond ore, you get like 10. Seems good to me. Just putting the items in is not enough to start this recipe now, because I have to attune the crafting table to the constellation. That's done by just putting the attune crystal in the left slot, and then we can begin. This recipe also takes 8 different side items, so I just have to wait to see, where it wants them. If you put the wrong item in the wrong slot, it won't work. While the observatory is in like the next tier to the telescope that I'm using, I don't actually think it's strictly better. It's a little bit harder to use, and I'll show you why once it's done. So to use it, you place it down on the ground, unsurprisingly. I'll place it next to our telescope. You right-click to get in it, and then you have this huge viewport. As you pan around, you can see the constellations in the viewport, but it doesn't have like the clear snap points that the telescope does. Now, when you find a constellation you haven't found before, it is quite obvious, because like the background stars and the foreground stars have different, they move at different rates across their screen. So let me sleep a few nights and find Right. You also have to, like, it acts as a mount. So after you close it, you have to hit shift to dismount. But let me sleep it through the night and try to find us a night with some new constellations out. Here we are. Here's 2 new constellations, I believe. So you can, like, kind of see, I mean, you can easily tell the difference between foreground and background stars, right? If you hold shift, you get your cursor to draw like you usually do. But I have no clue what these constellations look like, so I have to consult the book. 2 of these. I think the first one is one of these things. Huzzah. And this one is one of these. And after you discover these constellations, I'm pretty sure they, like, you can see their associated effects in the perk tree. A quick look around, doesn't look like there's anything more. And now when we look at our perks, yeah, we know what some of these do. That's useless. It seems meh. And I have to discover the other 2. I've now discovered every constellation with the exception of the rarest one, which is actually a secondary constellation, so I can see it with a telescope. It's so much easier to use the telescope than the observatory that I probably just won't use the observatory anymore. But I'll look for that one later. I don't really need it now. I'll need it when I start doing enchanting. But now that I've discovered all these constellations, I can see what these do. What is a unsealed allocated perk? Well, that seems decent. For after you get max EXP. Okay. Well, now that I know what those do, I'm gonna, I think, just run around the world for a while and get to level 30 so that I can put my points in, have full build. All right, flying around to max out my EXP is going to take a little bit of time, and we're out of time for today. So let's wrap up here. Sorry, it was a pretty big derp not actually checking the recipe of the mantle before, spending almost 2 episodes working towards it. But that's all right. We have now unlocked basically all the features in Astral Sorcery, perhaps with the neat exception of the mantle. So there are still cool things we can do. We're not just going to throw all this away. So we'll come back next time and put all this, infrastructure we built to work and do neat star powered things. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.